Mitchell T. Tracy, your moderator for today, also candidate for Clark County Commission District F. We'd like to thank our panel here, Robert Foust, U.S. Army VIP member, Steve Sanson Jr., U.S. Army, also marriage and family therapist. We also have Mantis Toboggan, VIP radio co-host, and we have also Michael McDonald, VIP Legislative Council. Today we have the State University Regents District 1 candidates, David and Olson, Joe Cato, and Jack Mallory. And we're going to have a vote on Jack Mallory. I guess he didn't respond to the email, so the panel's going to take a vote and then to see if we're going to have him attend today's interview.
Robert Foust, I vote yes.
C. Sanson Jr., vote yes.
Kofoworola, I vote yes. Mantis Toboggan, I vote yes.
Michael McDonald, yes.
Okay, great. We'd like to thank our sponsors too, Rod Q for Clark County Treasurer, Michael Broadway Real Estate, Real Water, and Lakeside Business Suites. Candidates, we're going to give you 1 minute for your opening. So if you'd like to go ahead and start.
Good, David.
Ready to go?
Yeah.
Yes, David, go ahead and pick up the microphone and 1 minute each, please.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about why I'm running for District 1 Regent. Yesterday I met a professor and I had told him that I am running for Regent and I wanted to increase the graduation rates in our colleges and universities. This professor works at one of our colleges. And he said, well, how are you going to do that? And I said, well, I'm going to have all the professors mentor in their students. So each student has a mentor. And he said, I don't have time for that. I'm not doing that. And I said, why not? He says, I just teach. I said, don't you think that's just part of the job? And that don't you think you should be mentoring, advising, and inspiring? I don't have time for that. And I said, well, I think that needs to change because our graduation rates are so low. He said, I don't have time for that, and I'm a tenured professor, and you can't do anything about it. I attend UNLV, and my experience was pretty much the same. And that's why you have a graduation rate, 4-year graduation rate, of 16% at UNLV, 21% at UNR, and 5% at Nevada State College. And if you can find the data, 9% at CSN. There are a lot of good professors out there, and there's a lot of good faculty. But we have to get rid of the attitude that it's not my job, and I'm not here to inspire students.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Jo Cato, and I'm running for office. I'm an instructor at CSN, and I've been an instructor and adjunct professor there for 7 years. And so over the years, I've seen where we've seen attrition with my students coming back to college, and we found out there was an issue with Title 17. And for the past 2 years, I've been trying through our legislative and governance body to get some changes there, and we haven't been able to do that. And so me running for office will give me the opportunity to be a voice with a body that can help to make change and probably influence changes with the other members of the board to make some changes, not just to Title 17, but to other legislation and how we can work and increase our graduation rate. We can form a partnership with our K through 12 and see how we can increase our students going into 2-year colleges. So that's one of the reasons why I'm running for University Board of Regents.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Jack Mallory, candidate for University of Regent Department 1. My story is a little bit different. I grew up a poor kid in small towns in Northern California and Southwest Kentucky. I understand what it's like to be poor. I understand what it's like to look for where your next meal is coming from. And I was able to break that cycle, that circle of poverty that grips way too many people in our society today with an opportunity, an education. When I left the Navy after 2.5 years as a disabled veteran, there were no options. There were no opportunities. The Veterans Affairs Administration didn't have anywhere that they would send people. There was no transition assistance from the Navy. And what I'm looking to do, if I'm elected as Regent, is to do a greater job and have an office that is specific for outreach to Nellis Air Force Base for transitioning airmen and other individuals that may come into the area. I want to look at college affordability. I want to be able to try and establish a hybrid program at CSN and at UNLV where core programs that don't necessarily need a brick and mortar school, you can get those credits for less money. You need to be able to transfer credits from CSN to UNLV. Right now that's not a possibility. And I don't think that an English credit at CSN is of any less value than an English credit at UNLV. But you actually have to transfer your credits out of state in order to transfer them back to UNLV. Those are the reasons that I'm running.
Thank you very much. We're going to go to our panel. And Kenny, please limit your answer to 1 minute, please. Thank you.
Robert Foust, U.S. Army VIP member. So what do you see as the biggest problem with the universities today overall, and what would you do to rectify the situation?
We'll start with Mr. Mallory.
Thank you. It's a great question. I think that the biggest problem that the university system has as a whole is the programs that they teach, the career paths that they develop, don't necessarily meet what it is that our society is developing into. The state has made a lot of emphasis and put a lot of money into economic development. And by and large, the jobs that are coming to the area are not necessarily high-tech jobs. There's a lot of warehouse positions. There's a lot of minor manufacturing that's coming to the valley. But it's not good enough. It doesn't create good enough paying jobs to attract those individuals that want to go to school, create a mountain of debt, and end up in a situation where they really can't afford the job that they're trained to do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe Cato. I think one of the things we could do with our higher education system is for our two-year colleges, that we implement stronger, more viable two-year programs. There's so many apprenticeship programs. I serve on the Governor's Apprenticeship Council, and so we write programs for the trades and for other industries, and I've been doing that for the past 6 months. And so I think at our community college level, if we're able to add more robust programs, we have the EMT program, the technology program, but if we could somehow tie in and add other programs in our two-year colleges, because a lot of times students don't want to go to a four-year college, but if we could strengthen our two-year colleges, I think we could shift the needle somewhat to encourage kids to go to college, and then for economic development, which is the gateway to sustenance, that we could have students wanting to go to two-year colleges. So that's one of my things that I'd like to do, is to strengthen the programs in our higher education for our two-year colleges.
Well, let's start with the regions. Obviously, there are some problems at the region level. The biggest problem I see is they don't know how to manage. You don't end up with fraudulent billing at the UNR Medical Center. You don't end up with 100% overrun on your budget, and that for a presidential campaign. You don't run over 130% on a medical school, and that you don't have phones breaking on the security system over there at UNLV, and that if you've got good management, who's been watching what is going on? You can understand a few $1,000, maybe $1 million, that is oversight. But how do people who are managing our system make an error of 132%? I have a plan, and that to address the problem. You can have all the kids you want walk through the door of our school system, but if you can't hang on to them, and that it's of no value. When you're not graduating any students, and that having accessibility is of no value. And that you have to do a couple things. Give me 30 seconds. You have to inspire, mentor, and advise all your students as well as teach. The second thing you have to do is you have to do some matrix, and that's so you know which programs are succeeding. And those programs which are not succeeding, you adjust or you can eliminate. And the third thing is you have to look out 5, 10, and 20 years to find out what the job market is gonna be like. So you can adapt your programs to that environment and not end up like we are gonna have in 20 years, where 65% of the jobs, which are currently in Las Vegas, are gone.
Thank you very much.
Steve Sanson Jr., U.S. Army. First, I'd like to thank you all for being here. Mr. Olson, Mr. Mallory, thank you for your service. As a graduate of UNLV, I understand what it's like to be in those classrooms, and a lot of professors, I'm sure Ms. Cato, you can attest, a lot of professors have hundreds of students per class, and I can understand how it would be difficult for them to inspire or be motivated to inspire all their students to increase the graduation rate. I guess my question is, what steps would you take to motivate professors to do what you're asking them to do?
Well, first of all, if you're in this, if you're in the situation where you're writing a contract where the only thing you say is that, well, you have to teach these classes and you have to have 5 hours of office hours for your students, and then maybe we better find somebody who can write a decent contract, if that's all you're asking. And that, so if that's what it takes, we write different contracts. But the thing is, we have to instill the attitude that each one of these sons and daughters needs to be educated, and that not only for themselves, their own personal gain, but for the state of Nevada. And that the problem you've got is not that you don't have the means, because we can be successful. The problem is we haven't worked hard enough, we haven't tried hard enough, and we can do that if we just put our minds to what we want as the final goal.
Want me to answer it too? Okay, thank you. I think it's very challenging for instructors, professors, tenured or otherwise, to really undertake the process of motivating 1,000 or more, hundreds and hundreds of kids. I think what we do, and I can attest to that, is that we try to develop peer-to-peer programs where we can have a more robust alumni association that helps us to motivate our kids going through the educational system. Because as an instructor, it is a challenge on my part personally, having to see hundreds of kids for any particular semester. And I run a small business as well. I manage my own business for the past 15 years, as well as an instructor teaching. So there's a challenge there. So I think if we have a strong peer-to-peer program that we can develop within our education system, as well as to engage our alumni association to motivate our students for them wanting to do better, I think we can have successes in our graduation rates and in our morale overall.
I look at this a little bit different, and what I view the job of a university regent to be is, I think, a little less expansive than what Mr. Olson and Ms. Cato do. And a university regent is supposed to be an administrator. They're supposed to develop policy, they're supposed to develop procedure, and oversee the budget of the Nevada system of higher education. They hire people to do the jobs that they're talking about needing to be done. They hire the presidents of each of the universities within the system, each of the colleges within the system. They hire the chancellor, and they hire the chief of staff. What you have to do is you have to empower the people that you hire to do the job, give them the policy that you want them to implement, and hold them accountable. It's not something that individual regents should be doing. They shouldn't be interfering with the day-to-day operation of UNLV, UNR, CSN, Truckee Meadows, any of the others. The Board of Regents is there as an administrative body. And unfortunately, I believe that the Board of Regents historically is overlooked when you get down to the bottom of the ballot. I think that there has been a lack of proper skills for that position. In my regular daily job, I've overseen an apprenticeship program for the last 15 years. I know what it is to administer post-secondary education. So I think that it begins with the people that the regents hire and ends with the people that they hire.
Thank you very much.
Kofoworola, marriage and family therapist. So my question is, due to the fact that we have such a low percentage graduate rate, it kind of starts, it seems like to me, working with adolescents, that it starts in high school, right? And if you feel like you don't have the basic knowledge and foundation, and you got people pushing you to go to college, and then you go to college and it's extremely hard because you don't have that basic knowledge and foundation, you are bound to not graduate. You're gonna drop out. I personally took tutoring while I was at UNLV, and it was very affordable. I think it was $25 for the whole semester when I took it. So due to the fact that we have young adolescents who are struggling in high school with this new Common Core system, and then encouraged to go to college, what are we gonna do? Like, can we offer more tutoring that's gonna be more affordable? Like, what are your plans to make sure that you grab those high schoolers that are struggling and then go to college and don't understand because they don't have the basic foundation?
Thank you, that's a great question. You know, I've spoke with some people in higher ed, and they say that there's a large percentage of students that enter the system as freshmen that automatically need remedial education. I think that looking at it from a 10,000-foot perspective, really where it needs to improve is a greater partnership between the local school districts, charter schools, and private schools, and the university system, an active partnership between them to identify ways to deliver that remedial education at the high school level before individuals even get to college.
Yes, your question is twofold. So the first thing we'll have to do, and my colleague just mentioned that, is we have to cultivate the relationship between secondary education and to get in high school education to get students ready for college. And so I think as a regent that they do have programs in place right now. And so as a regent, what we could probably do without having micromanaging the system, because we have people in place, this is what they do all day long, find out give us a feedback as to what programs are working and what programs are not working. And then from a regent perspective, we can make the determination as to which program needs to be stripped and give directions for which program needs to be enhanced. So I think if we start cultivating our secondary and primary education, K through 12, through all entities, not just charter and public school, CCSD, then if we start from there, we'll have our students ready for college readiness. So we just have to see what programs are there, and as a regent's perspective, what's working, what's not working. What's the data? What are we doing to effect change if it's not working? And then from there we can go and make sure that we have those programs in place. It all comes down to programs for readiness. And as a regent, we have to know right now what's working and what's not working without micromanaging, because my job is not to micromanage. I can't do that in my daily life at my business, and I don't intend to do this as a regent, and that's not what our job is.
Thank you very much.
You've got a very good point. You've got a very good point. Experienced manager knows that the most two common points of failure are wherever you have a nexus between two different operations and a novel experience. And you've got both of that when you go from high school to college. Points well taken, we need to do that. So let's go back to a couple points that were made. First of all, in that I have a master's degree and I have a bachelor's degree from accredited universities. And I always had an advisor, a faculty advisor. This is the only school that I've ever been to where you didn't have one. There's enough people to talk to every student face to face. Second thing is, you're just not an administrator as a regent. If you can hire and fire people, you are a manager. And no one has managed in this room more people than I have. Let me just give you an example. I was the chief of operations for Army Material Command in Southwest Asia. That's 56,000 people. And that we had 6 plants that were rebuilt, Humvees, Hummers, if you're familiar with that term, from the ground up. We put on 30,000 pieces of armor when the insurgents started blowing up our guys on the road to Baghdad. When the infantry vehicles and the tanks were damaged, we fixed those. For all the Army, all the Marines, all the helicopters, all the ocean-going ships. I know a little bit about management. I wrote the plan that did the disaster relief for the people in Haiti when they had the earthquake in 2012. I know a little bit about delegating I know a little bit about responsibility. And you better ask the people who are doing the job to do the job and not overspend your budget, not overbill the government from Medicare, be able to protect our students, and be able to teach them and keep them in school. Basic management, not administration, management.
Thank you very much.
Mantis Toboggan. Oh. Mantis Toboggan, Veterans of Politics Radio. Do you think a large percentage of the students that we lose are because they simply can't afford to continue? How large a percentage do you think that is? And is there anything that you feel you could enact or any way that you could assist those students?
I feel great question. The attrition rate right now, it stems from financing. I know for the state college level, there are grants. They just were awarded a $2.1 million grant for students that will help with financial aid at Nevada State College. So they're getting it right there. For the other university and community college levels, I think that it all comes down to financing. It comes down to what programs, what do they qualify for? Okay, a lot of students, can I afford to be in school full-time or do I need to go to school part-time? And so we can find out exactly what is causing the disconnect for students. I know in my experience, and this is not something that I think my role as a regent, I'd be talking to students on the level to say what is causing you to stay out of college, but what as an instructor, I find that my students, a lot of it has to do with financing. So they'll start the program, they can afford it, they're not getting their approval ratings for FAFSA and things like that is so low. And a lot of our students, believe it or not, are undocumented. And so there are challenges for them having to get those programs. So I think it all comes back to the data, what's working and what's not working. I'm not in the higher education system right now in terms of a region, and I'm asking the question, and then there's a limited amount of information that they will share with you as to what's causing what. So on an overall question, to respond to your question, I would say it has to do with financing. It has to do with the families, the low-income families are the ones that are dropping out, because that's where the rates are, the low-income families. The minority families are the ones that are dropping out right now within our education system. So we need to fix that.
Thank you.
Well, financing is a problem, and there's no question about that. And we need to advise and mentor and inspire our young people as far as finances go too. But Paloma College in California charges $47,000 per year for tuition. You know how many people they graduate, percentage they graduate in 4 years? 92%. The same over at University of North Carolina. Michigan graduates 62% in 4 years. University of Minnesota graduates 65% in 2 years. If we are going to be the world class in that, or the state's best university system, in that, we have to do something different. If students see the value in the education they are getting, if they can see the value that in 6 months after they graduate, they will be able to start paying off their student loans, they will stay in school, but they don't see the value. It is not the money that we pay for that they pay for tuition. It is the value that they get from that tuition that makes a difference.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Again, a great question. Cost is certainly a factor. I think that the cost for a credit hour at UNLV has gotten to the point where the average citizen just simply can't afford it, not without taking on additional debt. And there are a lot of people, this is a 24-hour town. There are a lot of people that work shift work, and because they work shift work, they're not able to attend a traditional college. They're not able to participate in the programs that exist today because it doesn't accommodate their needs. I think that when you talk about graduation rates, there's a lot of focus at the national level on a four-year degree. Mr. Olson spoke earlier about statistics. Those individuals that complete a four-year degree in 4 years, that number goes up dramatically if you look at the 6-year completion rate. 6 years at UNLV, they complete at 43%, which is still below the national average. But it's a lot different, and I think that it's reflective on the fact that people have to, sometimes take a break, whether they're going to school part-time. If they're going to school full-time, they have to take a semester off so that they can work and pay to live the next semester. I think that the other thing that we need to focus on, and Ms. Cato spoke about it, is vocational education, primarily at the community college level. It doesn't necessarily even have to be a degree program. It could be a certificate program that matches up with jobs in the economy. And I think that when you bring those types of things to low-income people, you bring those types of opportunities to low-income people, that you'll have a greater rate of participation and a lower attrition rate.
Thank you. This is going to be our last question due to time, and please allow your answer to 1 minute. Thank you very much.
Michael McDonald, VIPI Legislative Council. I've got a question in regards to, this stems off the funding. A lot of people cannot afford the system of higher learning. They end up going into massive amounts of debt that they spend years trying to pay off and struggle because in order to try to obtain an education. A lot of people that want to go to school can't because of the cost. If elected to the office, would you guys put in programs and scholarships to help people that want to go to pursue an education and a career to be able to? And what would you do to help alleviate that problem in regards to debts and providing a lower cost to actually obtain a degree and pursue one? Thank you.
There's limited amounts of things that the university system can do at this point because of funding issues right now, and she is funded at 36% less than it was in 2008, adjusted for inflation, from the state. They don't receive the kind of funding that's necessary to run the existing programs. So when you talk about additional scholarship programs, loan forgiveness programs, it costs money. I mean, there's no way around that. Whether you're getting private grants, you're getting donations from private organizations, you're getting endowments, those things can definitely be applied to that. At the same time, I lost my train of thought. You're looking at, I'm sorry, I'll have to.
Well, such as lowering the cost of administration and actually providing more student services and programs to help kids get through school.
Well, one thing you can definitely look at is, from a 10,000-foot perspective, is what programs work, what don't, what are necessary to today's students and to society as a whole. And if something's not necessary, cut it out and use those resources for something else.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. As Regent, as Mr. Mallory talked about, there's limiting as to what we can do, because we are in fact administrators. That's what we are. And so we delegate, we have the experts that we hire, and the experts give us recommendation as to what programs work and what programs does not work, and we delegate what we think should be the next step. When it comes to forgiveness programs and it comes to scholarships, it takes money, right? Everything takes money. Right now, our endowment at UNLV and UNR, that's lowered. We're not getting as much as we used to get from the legislature. There's a lot of dissension between our regents right now with our legislative body as to whom for accountability, who should oversee what. And Mr. Mallory probably knows this too. We're looking at AJR5 that is going to come back in front of the legislature next session, and that should change the dynamics of a whole lot of things. And I think when this happened, which I'm in support of, I think we will see more funding coming to our university system, because now we'll have, say, our governance has changed, because now we have accountability. not just for the regions, but through our legislative body, because then now there's like the eyes in the sky above. They'll be able to oversee the programs that we're doing to see what and what does not work. So I think there is light at the end of the tunnel, but right now we have to get through our next legislative cycle to get this bill passed. And when it's passed, I can see our legislative bodies now funneling more monies to our programs here in Nevada.
I want to go back to my statement. If you hire and fire people, you are a manager, not an administrator. The second thing is, I'm the only guy with a plan. I'm the only one that's proposed a plan. And that 3 phases to that plan. And the second thing is, in that if you're going to be a manager, you better be able to manage a $132 million overrun on a medical school, a $4 million overrun on a presidential debate. You better be able to control your costs and what you're billing the government at your medical school. If you are concerned about money, your regents better pay attention to what is going on and how they're spending their money. And I don't know if the $8 million that we spent on the presidential campaign helped one student graduate. I don't think so. We have to manage the money that we've got. We have to quit asking for things and then turn around and spend it unwisely. We need to inspire our students. We need to evaluate every single program to make sure that these students are going to have a job. And then we need to project out what the job skills are going to be in this state so that we can train to keep those students employed.
Thank you very much. I'm Mitchell T. Tracy, I'm your moderator today, also candidate for Clark County Commission District F. We'd like to thank our panel for being here. We also like to thank our sponsors, Ron Q. for Clark County Treasurer, Michael Broadway Real Estate, Real Water, and Lakeside Business Suites. We'd also like to thank our candidates for State University Regent District Number 1, and we're going to have 1 minute for closing. If you go ahead and start, David M. Olson, and we'll finish it up. Thank you.
Okay, well, I thought that was a closing and everything. But anyway, so I spent 34 years in the military. People do not think of military people as educators. In fact, lots of times, we don't even think of it ourselves. But I will tell you that the battlefields of Afghanistan and Iraq are very poor places to start an on-the-job training program. If you are a military person, and I have been for 34 years, I have never said to a soldier, like the professor told me, I don't have time for you. Soldiers, from the day they get off the bus at basic training to the day they take their last salute, it's education. If you aren't in a class, you are teaching the class, or you're doing your homework by rigorous practical exercises. All you veterans know that. I am an educator. I am an experienced manager of large organizations, and I have the plan to make this better and not wallow around with low graduation rates, spending our money recklessly, and disservicing our state and our students.
Thank you. Jim Cato?
Thank you. I didn't serve in the military, but my son is serving right now, so I'm a very proud military mom. I'm a UNLV graduate. I have 2 master's degrees, and I have a bachelor's degree. I have a master's in economics, so I know how to crunch the numbers, and I have an MBA. I have managed my own business in Las Vegas for the past 15 years. I have 22 employees, and we've been able to stay in business in whether the economy is going, belly up. We have been able to maintain that. I'm an educator. I've been teaching in the education system for the past 7 years while managing my business and balancing a family of 3 children at the same time. I know what it takes to have transparency, accountability, and fiscal responsibility to stay in business, and the higher education system should be no different. It's managed as a business. We need to forge relationships between K through 12. We need to work with our business community to help us to strengthen our educational system, to find out what their needs are and how we can cater our students to fill those needs that are coming, especially over the next 30 years with all the industries that are coming into Nevada. It's not just gaming anymore. We have everything else that's happening.
Thank you,
And
Regent.
I'm Joe Cato, and I'd love to earn your support.
Jack Mallory?
Well, thank you. I don't think that my resume is quite as expansive as Mr. Olson or Ms. Cato, but the one thing that I do have on my resume is 15 years of experience administering a program of higher education. What we do there, we work directly with business. Business tells us what it is that they need in the form of the product. The product is the student, the person that's actually going to graduate the program. So we've already done that. I know what the answers to those questions are. I know how to do those things. And for 15 years, I've been doing those things. I'm a product of the same program that I administer today. I am a proud veteran. I think that we need to do better jobs of attracting people that are transitioning out of the service into our education system, whether it's vocational, higher level programs, 2-year degree programs. There's a number of different things. But at the end of the day, I think that this is a situation where experience in education matters. And I will leave you at that. My website is mallory4nv.net. And I'd hope that you'd take a look and see a little bit more about me and what my position on the issues are.
Thank you.